Welcome to the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast, where we explore the art of intentional living. Whether you're juggling life as a working parent, leading in your profession, or simply seeking more meaning in your everyday as a retiree, this space is for you. I'm your host, Kendra Chapman, and today we're diving into how to make the most of a long commute. If you've ever felt like those 30 minutes or more in the car are just wasted time, I've got some ideas for you. And if you're not a commuter and you're listening to this podcast, maybe save it for a road trip or two. Instead of seeing your commute time as just another task, you can use it as an opportunity to learn, reflect, and create a sense of calm before starting or ending your day. So we're going to talk about how to turn drive time into personal growth time, whether that's through podcasts, audiobooks, or simply giving yourself a moment to breathe. Plus, I'll share my favorite ways to bring a little hygge, that coziness and comfort into this routine. And of course, I want to hear from you. So, what are your favorite ways to make your commute more meaningful? Let's talk about it. If you're ready to shift your mindset and find joy in the everyday moments, grab your coffee or tea and settle in with me, and let's get started. So for segment 1, I want to talk about what's bringing me hygge this week. We're making it a family routine nowadays to go hiking on Sundays. So my weekend is filled with routine of Saturdays, generally going to the store and getting the groceries for the week and then doing the food prep, laundry. I like to get a lot of that stuff out of the way on Saturdays so I can really just chill out on Sundays because I'm a working mom. I am a principal of a middle school and I have 550 some odd kids at work every day that I take care of. And then I also come home to my 3 children. And so I'm trying to make sure that those routines are sacred on the weekends and I don't do a lot of work that I would do normally Monday through Friday. So Sundays are really my time. And I've been watching my boys really be able to enjoy movies these days that aren't cartoons and they have more of a grown-up theme to them. And that's exciting for me because we're starting to watch movies that I enjoyed when I was in middle and high school and still have that conversation of like, oh, the themes of that movie were interesting and we can actually have a family discussion after it's over. We're really doing our best not to talk through a movie these days, but when we can accomplish that, that's even better. So, yeah, it's really interesting to watch them grow and graduate from watching those cartoon movies. And I love a good animated film. But it's nice to see that they're interested in some historical fiction and movies that are based on things that have happened in the past. So recently we watched Rocket Boys, October Sky. Rocket Boys is the book. We watched October Sky and they really enjoyed it. So I was excited to see that they could keep their attention span the whole time through the whole movie and enjoyed it. So that was cool because they're getting so tall. They're almost they're eye level with me now, which means they're going to be looking down on me probably this time next year. So I know it's just begun as far as the teenage years. They're preteen. So we'll see. It's just they've come a long way from being in the NICU after 34 weeks of being in my belly. So anyway, that's what's bringing me hygge this week. Kind of watching my boys grow and become bigger humans and carrying on a conversation about something we've watched or listened to. And so we do listen to audiobooks in the car, and we've had our share of audiobooks before bed. If I don't feel like reading a Harry Potter from cover to cover, we'll listen to the audio version, especially because some of those books just have great voices. But a few series books we've listened to on audio or Audible, and so we enjoy doing that. And at times I do listen to audiobooks in the car. Usually it's more for work if I need some motivation or I need to read a book for work and be ready to share it with colleagues. But I rarely listen to books for fun. And so I've started doing that. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit for my Huga highlight. Moving on to segment 2, talking about how to make the most of your commute. So for me, I'm in the car a good hour on the way to work and a good hour on the way back. So I can definitely listen to a couple of podcasts, and I have my podcasts that I like to listen to every week. And I usually consume all that content Monday through Friday. Every now and then I've gone through all the content that I normally would listen to with my regular podcasts that I like. And so I have to find one or two new ones, maybe something I'm researching, because when I was doing my foraging episode, I was listening to a couple of podcasts about foraging. So you can definitely do research if you're, looking up certain topics or you're interested to find out more information about a topic. Podcasts are great for that. You can definitely explore different topics or genres. There's all kinds of things out there in the world of podcasts. But there's also I discover a new podcast just about every week if I take the time to search. Depends on what I'm doing too. So if I'm getting ready to go on a trip, I might look for a podcast about where I'm going. Or if I'm feeling nostalgic about a certain area where I've visited before and I want to learn more about that area. Or if there's a show I really like on maybe, let's say, HBO or Showtime, they have podcasts for your favorite shows these days too. I was really into The Gilded Age when it came out on HBO, and they had a podcast about each season, and they would break down each episode and talk about the history. And it was fascinating because they would talk about the buildings that are still standing in New York City and the streets and the history behind just the building up New York City and during the Gilded Age before that. And I was listening to that podcast because I had been listening to the Bowery Boys also, which one of the hosts on the Gilded Age is a host on the Bowery Boys, which is also a historical podcast about New York City. So pretty fascinating. I dive into genealogy. That is one of my hobbies. And so I can go down that road very easily. There are several podcasts on genealogy. And so I can go down that rabbit hole pretty easy. And so I start to find my way into historical podcasts and, picking up a few here and there. Definitely interesting to me. I went to New Orleans a couple of years ago for a work trip, and I hadn't been there for a long time. So I wanted to brush up on what was current and things to do. And so I listened to a couple of podcasts, and I found one really good one I loved called Beyond Bourbon Street. I think it's Mark Bologna is the host of that, and he's a native of New Orleans, and he talks about everything outside of Bourbon Street, which is great. Good to hear the local flair and stories and places to go and things to eat. And so he's great for if you're going to New Orleans and you want to listen to a good podcast about New Orleans. Beyond Bourbon Street is great. So there's just, if you are into a hobby or you're picking up a new hobby or you want to learn more about a hobby, there are all kinds of podcasts out there. I'm sure you will discover something new that would be informational and helpful as you continue to work on your hobby. Genealogy is definitely something that I enjoy. And so I listen to genealogy gems. I pick up all kinds of nuggets of information about how to find more information about my family tree from that podcast. So you can just learn so much in a commute to and from work. Now, my family rolls their eyes when they're in the car because I don't really want to listen to my podcast. So we usually listen to a book, an audible book when we're in the car, unless my husband's in the car and then we're listening to music. So, everybody in your family is going to have their preference, and that's okay. But when I'm in the car by myself, I really enjoy the time and I see it as time to learn. But on Fridays, on my way to work and on my way home, I usually just listen to music. So I like to switch it up too. But sometimes I will just turn everything off and reflect and be still as I'm driving and just meditate, like safely, of course. Just thinking about my day. But generally speaking, I'm listening to a podcast. And there are some podcasts out there that will walk you through a meditation and they'll say, just make sure you're not driving, or if you're doing this, do this part at another time. So, yeah, it's good to be responsible when you're a podcaster, making sure you warn people. And for me, my podcast is definitely user friendly for anybody who's commuting or running errands. But also if you're at home with a cup of tea, which I'm enjoying right now. I'm having some lavender and chamomile with honey. So podcasts and audiobooks definitely are inspiring for me. I'm learning all kinds of information that make me want to talk more about different topics. And so I'm using some of those topics on this podcast, and probably will continue to do that in future episodes. But if there's a particular topic that you're interested in hearing me research and speak on, definitely let me know. This is really just a lifestyle podcast, so it can be anything from my first episode of my 10 pillars of what I spoke about. Just really thinking anywhere from, taking care of yourself in wellness, self-care, to just little routines around the house, ways to be more productive at work and at home, in your personal life, self-help topics. Spirituality is an area that I'd like to explore a little bit more, and I may venture off and do a separate podcast on that. I grew up as a Catholic, practicing Catholic when I was a child and through my teens and 20s. And then I started just to realize that I was more spiritual and not so much wanting to practice an organized religion. But I grew up learning about all different types of faith and religions. And that's something that my family has definitely encouraged, is learning and exploring. And so I continue to do that now as an adult, and I encourage my children to do that as well. So I hope that, if in future, if I do a couple of podcasts, episodes on spirituality, that listeners find it interesting, just to continue to learn more about the world around us and how different people live their lives. But I love exploring different topics. So I'd love to hear if any of you out there have a podcast or two or three that you would recommend. I know there's so many, and there's so many out there that I'll probably never get to, but I would love to hear what your favorites are, so I can explore those as well. I'd love to give them a listen. Yeah, and don't forget that there are lots of local podcasts. I live in a little corner of Middle Tennessee, and there is a podcast about the history of the town where I work. And it's just about an hour away from where I live, and it's fascinating. And they have all kinds of interesting information that they share, historical information. It's called Front Porch Radio. History's Hook. It's a local podcast about Murray County, Tennessee. And Murray County is a great place to visit if you're ever in Middle Tennessee and you go to Nashville and you want to go south and explore. Murray County, Columbia, Tennessee is the downtown area of Murray County, and it's very sweet little downtown area with a square, courthouse, and lots of shops, and it's really interesting and fun to explore. So I always enjoy going to Columbia when I can. And we're getting ready to have Mule Day, which is a annual celebration that started out a long time ago. I would say at least 100 years ago, if not more, where they all the farmers would bring their livestock into town for the market day, and mules are what this area is known for. And so they continue to celebrate with Mule Day, and it's a whole cultural experience that goes on all week. And we actually coincide with spring break for that time frame, so people can come out and enjoy and be with their families and partake in the annual tradition of Mule Day. So that's definitely a local podcast that talks more about that as well. And like I said, I'm into some spiritual and new age podcasts. I definitely listen to those. I also listen to podcasts that provide motivation. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Wiser Than Me podcast with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She's great. I've always enjoyed her, and she interviews lots and lots of women on her podcast that are older than her. So hence the name Wiser Than Me. It's a fascinating podcast. I also like We Can Do Hard Things with Glennon Doyle. And another podcast a friend recommended, Finding Fred. It's about Fred Rogers. So pretty interesting information that you can learn. And it's almost like an extension of a great radio program that you get to pick the topic for. So I always see it as it's just really radio, but you get to pick the topic. And there's some learning and productivity podcasts that I really like too. If you're into coaching, I always want to continue my coaching education, like instructional coaching education. And so I listen to a few of those podcasts. I like Jim Knight and his coaching conversations. I listen to Elena Aguilar's Bright Morning podcast. She has great information if you're in education and you want to continue learning. Also, Character Strong. That's a great podcast for behavior interventions and response to intervention. I find that really helpful as I'm in the middle school world. And I'm really just, open to any other suggestions you guys have. So if you want to send me a few podcasts, let me know. So instead of rushing through traffic with stress, try using this time for mindful reflection the next time you're in the car. Think about the day ahead, set an intention, or simply enjoy the quiet. Sometimes silence is the best reset. And if you get a great idea while driving, but always forget them, don't forget that your smartphone has all the tools you need, and it can be hands-free. So try using the voice notes on your phone. This is a great way to capture inspiration, brainstorm, or even draft an email in your head before you get to work. And remember, Siri and Alexa and AI can help you do so many things with voice activation prompts. You just have to practice. So at the end of the day, your commute doesn't have to be a waste of time. A little intention can turn this time into one of the most valuable parts of your day. So that's all for today's episode of the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast. And so I'd love to hear from you. What's the one thing that helps you make your commute more enjoyable? I invite you to join me on this journey of slowing down to truly speed up where it matters most. Let's commit to finding moments of stillness, embracing mindfulness, and creating space for what truly fills us up. If today's message resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe, consider leaving a review, and even sharing this podcast with someone who could use a little more intentionality in their life. You can also connect with me on Instagram at Coaching with Kendra Chapman. I'd love to hear how you're embracing mindfulness in your day. Tag me on your commute hacks, and I'd love to see how you're making your drive time more intentional. Let's keep that conversation going. You can also email me at coaching with Kendra Chapman at gmail.com. Again, that's coaching with Kendra Chapman at gmail.com. Until next time, remember, going slow isn't about doing less. It's about doing what matters most. Let's embrace this season together with intention and confidence. And as always, stay connected and remember, take it slow, be intentional, and embrace the season you're in. Because the reflection in me honors the reflection in you. And as you head into the next week, let your light shine through. Take care and keep leading your life with purpose. And remember, go slow to go fast. Thanks for listening.